Let's get started, guys. Who's excited to be up and awake? I don't even know what time zone I'm in right now. On a Tuesday. Let's get another round of applause. Let's get that energy up. Woo! Okay, so that was a lovely introduction. And I think the funny thing is everybody is always asking me, what the heck, I'm not swearing, is a LinkedIn influencer, and why should I care, especially agency side and brands? So I will go over all of that today, so I hope you're taking notes. So first of all, why are you listening to a green-haired human with a cat hat talking on stage? Well, let's go. I just realized I don't have my clicker. Thank you. Yes, I was like, oh, I don't have the thing to actually do this. Okay, so why am I? There we go. Just like she said, this is a direct quote from Huffington Post. If you haven't met the Oprah of LinkedIn, you should. And I thought this was a joke article, quite honestly, when it first came out, but the joke has become reality. So essentially, even internally at LinkedIn, they call me the Oprah of LinkedIn. And one of the things that I love to do is highlight other LinkedIn creatives and other interesting people and brands on LinkedIn. So that makes me Oprah. Okay, so a little bit more about me. Currently, I have about 4 million views on my LinkedIn channel. It's a little over a year old, so maybe close to a year and a half. 4 million views, that's pretty significant. I have the longest running daily channel, and I made this deck last week, so now I have 36,000 followers. And I've also been featured on a variety of publications, and if you want, and you're excited to learn about LinkedIn video, I would suggest that you check out my LinkedIn video course, which is on LinkedIn Learning/Linda. So if you have a premium account, it is free, and it is amazing. So please check that out. I think right now that course ranks in the top 1% of all courses on LinkedIn Learning/Linda. So that's why I am here on stage talking to all y'all about LinkedIn. So why LinkedIn? LinkedIn is my absolute favorite platform of all time. And it is because LinkedIn can do so much, and the demographics on LinkedIn are slightly different than, of course, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. So there are 565 million users on LinkedIn, and about 40%, so close to half of all of those users, log on daily. Think about it. Half of, and I'm not going to do math on stage, 565 million log on. And for those of you who work in marketing, let's just get a quick, who works in marketing or who works agency side brands? I heart all of you, bless. So it is so important to note that about half of this traffic is mobile, because as we're thinking about outreaching to, say, clients and what we can pitch to client side, it's important to know that this is a great platform for that. And I don't think enough people bring that up. So I love to bring it up to all of you guys right here. And if we want to talk about spend, if we want to talk about money, because who doesn't want to talk about money, and who actually has purchasing power? Because I might say run an ad campaign for a client on Instagram, but those 18 to 21-year-olds may not have the money to spend. However, on LinkedIn, about 44% of LinkedIn users make over $75,000 USD a year. I need to change that to Canadian dollars. And because I am so excited about video, there's 1 million videos shared every second on the internet. So I'm especially excited that LinkedIn has moved to now having video on the platform. Nope, that's definitely not it. Okay, that's the wrong button. Okay, so what is a LinkedIn influencer? And I'm using that term, of course, in quotations. So I'm going to go over some characteristics that will help you define and understand what a great and who a great LinkedIn influencer is so you can choose to work with them once you've defined some parameters. Okay, so who are LinkedIn influencers? So we have our celebrity influencers, and on other platforms, for example, on Instagram, a celebrity might be a Kardashian, right? But this is why I love LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn, a celebrity is truly someone like Richard Branson, Ariana Huffington, or let's just get a round of applause for Justin Trudeau. Woo! That was very small applause. So he obviously does content. He does quite a bit of video content. So if you don't follow him already on LinkedIn, I suggest you see what Justin, because we're on a first name basis now, Justin and his team does on LinkedIn. So now we also have what I call general influencers. These are people who have 500,000 to 1 million followers on LinkedIn. And I have to explain to you scale on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, 500,000 is not the same as, say, 500,000 on YouTube or 500,000 on Instagram. You have to multiply that by at least 100. So think about scale in that way when you're looking at people on LinkedIn and what their follower base looks like. So we have beautiful general influencers who just have a ton of followers, like Shama Hyder, who's amazing, Liz Ryan, and Beth Comstock. Now, once again, I suggest you follow all of these people that I've listed out, as they're all interesting either content creators or influencers on the platform. Now we have what I call industry influencers. They dominate their marketplace. And I've completely spelled my friend Alan's name wrong, so it's actually A-L-L-E-N, Alan Gannett. And he talks a lot about entrepreneurship and also creativity. And so there's a lot of people who follow him specifically in the space for that. There's Winnie Byam-Yuma, and I really should have reached out to her and asked her how to pronounce her last name. But she specifically talks actually a lot about doing good in her community. And Selena Prakash, who works at 500 Startups. So she talks about venture capitalism. Okay, so what do LinkedIn influencers do for a living, right? On other platforms, a lot of influencers, I will once again pick on Instagram, are, they're like, I'm a travel vlogger. I do bikini modeling for a living. On LinkedIn, that's completely blown out of the water. So you have influencers for business, you have influencers for healthcare, for finance, for agriculture, for marketing, of course, and industrial, etc. So I was just at Forbes 30 Under 30, and a lot of those young people were actually starting to think about creating content. And when they heard about LinkedIn, they were like, I want to get on that, because that's where our primary market and the people who will buy our product or invest in our product are. Okay, so why are LinkedIn influencers seen as influential? Why does it matter, right? Who are these people? Why do we even care? So based off LinkedIn Top Voice from last year, people tend to have 72 times more likes, 5 times more comments, and 7 times more shares. And I believe the stat also from last year is that a LinkedIn Top Voice gains approximately 120,000 more followers each year than the average LinkedIn person. And I was talking to some of my friends, and some of them are like, I just hit 400 followers on LinkedIn. And I'm like, so think about the scale of that. Now, they also know their industry intimately, so they're able to create content that's super in-depth, and also their audience loves it. And they're also creating very original and different content. So I always like to bring up this concept of what is interesting and different. Now, there's LinkedIn influencers on the platform. One of them, he posts videos about laying asphalt for freeways. Let that soak in for a second. So they're just slow cam motions of laying asphalt for freeways. However, is there an audience for that on LinkedIn? Absolutely. And is he getting clients from that on LinkedIn? Absolutely. So it's a really fascinating time. I have to interrupt my own presentation because I want to say at 8 a.m. today, and I haven't checked my phone, so I don't know if it was officially released yet, but LinkedIn has released LinkedIn Top Voices. Now, this is what I call the EGOT of awards for anyone on LinkedIn. So for anyone who doesn't know, an EGOT is an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. So it's every single possible American award that you could win all wrapped in one, and that is what a LinkedIn Top Voice is. 0.0003% of all LinkedIn users will get one in 1 year. So it's pretty significant. And I'm so excited to say, and you guys are hearing it first, literally from me live on stage. So I am one of this year's LinkedIn Top Voices for social media and marketing. So thank you. So I am so happy to join this group of amazing creatives and influencers. But once again, I bring that up because please, after this talk, look up that list, check it out, look at who's listed on there and who is a significant industry leader. So if you have clients, for example, in industrial, look up who's trending in industrial and who's an influencer there. Even if it's just to follow their content and see how they're engaging their audience. Once again, everything, I think, is always a learning lesson. And I believe 2 more people who are in this presentation, when I made this last week, they weren't LinkedIn Top Voices, but as of right now, they are. So I'm so excited, and I'll say when their names come up. Okay, so when is it a good time to work with a LinkedIn influencer? Now, people always look at me and they say, well, you're a LinkedIn influencer. You probably say, it's always a good time to work with me. Just give me buckets of money. However, I myself run an agency, so I don't like to waste money. And I don't like to waste money for brands that I work with. So it's a weird double-edged sword. So here are 4 ways and times that it makes sense to work with specifically a LinkedIn influencer. One is, of course, because LinkedIn is truly the best B2B platform out there, and I will fight you if you don't agree with me on that. But actually, if you don't agree with that and you know which platform is better, I want to know too. It is a great place to get brand awareness for B2B. So you can spend that money, you can get that brand awareness by working with, once again, targeted influencers in that vertical. So it's very important to make sure that you're working with an influencer that actually speaks to what you need to, say, sell, or you need to get out there. Number 2, you can use this to help amplify a B2C launch. So LinkedIn is not the best place to do a B2C brand awareness campaign. I actually recently got outreach by I will not name you, toothbrush brand, electric toothbrush, and I said if I did a campaign around this personally on my platform, people would, they would start the fires, they would come over to my house, and it would not be pretty. So it's really important when you're working with a B2C brand and you're thinking about LinkedIn, possibly, it makes sense more when you're doing a launch. Okay, so another case scenario that I personally do is I help thought leaders who are C-level executives or who would like to be thought leaders establish themselves on LinkedIn. And a great way, of course, to get traffic is to work with somebody who's already a thought leader on LinkedIn. Makes sense, right? And then finally, the last case that always makes sense is to collaborate or hire a LinkedIn influencer, once again, in the right vertical, and have them help with strategy. So have them help with how should you be creating content, how should you be doing outreach, all of those beautiful things that we want to know. Okay, so who are examples of LinkedIn influencers? And I'm going to talk about myself, of course. So here's me. I'm an influencer for LinkedIn video, and I love video. Now there's also Natalie Riso, who does LinkedIn videos. She focuses on Gen Z, and she is now I want to say 3-time LinkedIn top voice, and she is 21. and 3 times top voice, which is, to me, deeply, deeply impressive. And John Yoshihai, who has his own personal brand, but he previously worked at YouTube and now essentially runs video at Instagram. Also, I want to say he's 25. So deeply impressive brands. So let's go over what I do first. So I create daily video content on specific subjects. So these are all parameters to look for when you're thinking about possibly working with a LinkedIn influencer. So if you are working in the travel vertical, you want to find somebody who already creates content in travel. Now, I also create content across other platforms, but to be totally honest, none of it is as popular as my LinkedIn content. And it's very highly engaged. So the moment I post anything, I will get essentially hundreds of likes. I will get immediately at least a few comments. And so my audience is raring and ready to go, and they want to engage. And that's so important whenever you're thinking about working with anyone who says that they're an influencer on LinkedIn. Okay, memes, dreams, and more. I always like to put in this slide. So as you can see, this beautiful picture on my right-hand side, that is Peter Roybal. He's the head of video on LinkedIn, and for Halloween last year, he dressed up as me. And there exists now this, fake frame for LinkedIn. And why do I have this slide? Well, just like thinking about influencer marketing in general, if you don't have a meme about you, are you really an influencer? No. So I have fan art, I have this little meme that I actually made myself, which I hope we all recognize that meme. Because I made this maybe 2 or 3 months into creating content on LinkedIn when I was absolutely even more obsessed with LinkedIn video. Okay, so let's go on to a more serious subject. So Natalie Riso, now, she creates regular written content. So she's what I call a writer influencer. And she talks a lot about diversity issues, about women in the workplace. And once again, she's only 21, and she has already won LinkedIn Top Voice 3 times because her content is so deeply engaging. And I want to say that she has currently 400,000 followers. So pretty impressive numbers. And then there is my favorite, John Yoshihai. He is amazing because he does his own Dilbert-like cartoons on LinkedIn. So he talks about workplace cartoons. This is such a perfect marriage of creativity and what LinkedIn is able to do, which is connect people who want to talk about work. So he does this great cartoon. Please follow him. But he also amplifies what he does in-house. So in-house, he's worked at YouTube to help the top YouTubers monetize their channel. So we're talking about the top 1% of all YouTubers monetize their channel. So he's a fascinating person in general. And like I said, he just moved over to Instagram to help them revolutionize their video content, IGTV. I will not talk about you on stage right now. We're all there, right? And he has a very, very engaged cartoon fan base. I wrote 50K. He corrected me. It's actually 400,000. And these people are all there to look at his cartoons, which I think is wonderful because he already has such a deeply influential job, but he now has a deeply influential personal brand. And these are the kind of interesting influencers to look for. Okay, so what are examples of actual campaigns? Because what we want to see is what an actual campaign looks like. So I'm going to give you 4 examples, and I've gotten permission from all of these except for HubSpot, so if you work at HubSpot, I apologize. But all of these brands are brands that I personally work with to make campaigns, so we're all good. The first one is Skype for content creators. Now, this is a feature that Skype released that allows you to essentially use separate streams on Skype and then edit them in interesting ways using OBS software. Very technical. But it is such a perfect product and such a perfect thing to have on LinkedIn and have a campaign around because it is technical, because there are editors on LinkedIn that want to find new technical products. So I work with them to do 2 things, an explainer video that explained how to use this technical product, and then a show and tell video where I made up a fake show and I had 2 of my LinkedIn influencer friends join me and we shot content around that. So I want to give, of course, every brand as much bang for their buck, but that's what you want to look for in an influencer, is somebody who can think really creatively about how to make content around your B2B or B2C product. And then, of course, make it fun. Now, this is Pelpina Tripp. If you don't follow her, please follow her. She is amazing. She's based in Amsterdam, and I don't know why I said it like that. She's based in Amsterdam, and she makes video content as well on LinkedIn. She worked with HubSpot to do a promotional video where she talked about one of their new video products. Very exciting stuff. And she essentially is really good at always answering questions. So I cannot emphasize this enough. Now, we all know on other platforms, you will have influencers. For example, I just keep picking on Instagram. I actually really love Instagram. But on Instagram, you'll see a lot of influencers. They'll post a picture, a branded video, and they'll never respond to comments, right? They're just like, drop it and go. Drop that mic and go. And on LinkedIn, the best influencers on the platform spend that time to actually go in and answer questions, to actually go in and engage with their audience. So truly a top influencer on LinkedIn that you want to work with is someone who values engagement. And that's not just clicking like, that's commenting back. So the more significant kind of engagement. And Pelpina is amazing at this. And I would say on average, her videos garner bare minimum 10,000, but a lot of them get 100,000 or more views, which once again on LinkedIn, think about scale. 100,000 people who possibly are making $75,000 or more. That's pretty delicious. Okay, so here's two more quick examples that I will go through. So here we go. One is London and Partners. Now, this is a great agency that is through the Mayor of London's office. And they work with different influencers across different platforms, and specifically business influencers, to talk about entrepreneurship efforts as well as tourism efforts. So I am so excited to work with them. And what I've been doing is I've been doing campaigns around what are interesting things happening on the tourism space and how can you bring more tourists to London, essentially. Now, I'm also the global ambassador, brand ambassador for WeWork, which is a co-working space. It's global. You may have heard of it. And so I do content specifically with WeWork on the influencer side. I also help with a little bit of social strategy. I help them understand how do you reach that audience on LinkedIn, and how do you really get in-depth questions and answers from people who may want to sign up for a co-working space, right? Because there are so many co-working spaces out there. Now, how do we make a brand like WeWork really exciting globally? And I think, once again, that is a hallmark of an interesting or good influencer, is somebody who can think about how you can reach your target niche, for example, tourism, but think about it in a really global way. Okay, so I ran through my talk so fast, guys. All right, so thank you for listening. And please get in contact with me. You can always find me. And I am such a nerd, so I actually got a blazer. I'm not wearing it today, and it has my LinkedIn URL emblazoned on the back, because that's how much of a LinkedIn fangirl I am. LinkedIn.com/in/Goldie. So please follow me on LinkedIn. And now I will be joined by the amazing Jeff Lancaster, who is based here at LinkedIn Toronto. We're going to have a beautiful fireside chat. Amazing.
Looks great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for coming, everybody, today. What a talk. Wow, I feel energized now. I will say, first off, congrats on Top Voice 2018. I think the press release did come out this morning, so we're very excited about that. Want to start out with a first question, a little bit different. This is actually something that we ask every new LinkedIner when they actually join the company. What, Goldie, is the one thing that we should know about you that is not on your LinkedIn profile?
So I am a huge nerd, which you can probably figure out from my LinkedIn profile, but I cosplay. So I dress up as anime or comic book characters, and I go to conventions like San Diego Comic-Con, and I've done it professionally and competitively on the side for a while, which is pretty fun, and I've actually had comic book writers shout me out as, this is an amazing version of Wonder Girl, so.
Have you been in a comic book?
Not
Maybe one day.
Not
One day soon.
yet. I don't think so. People say it's not me, but there is a comic called Snot Girl. I recommend you look it up. It's based on a LA influencer with green hair.
Could be you.
Could be me.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. So you touched on it a little bit in the talk today, but tell us about the journey on how you got started on LinkedIn and why LinkedIn.
Gosh, so look at me. So everyone assumes that I'm an influencer on Instagram or on YouTube or another platform that's more visual, right? More offhand visual. I got started on LinkedIn because in August of last year, first of all, I got into the video beta, which I am so grateful for. One day, just a video button showed up on my LinkedIn profile, and I was like, what is this weird thing? But I had just wrapped up a head of marketing job at a social analytics company, and I was burned out. Everybody has had those moments where they've been just done. They're just done. So I was done. I wanted to create content that I found interesting, that I thought was fun or cool. So I got into LinkedIn video, and I thought, no one will ever see these videos. Nobody's gonna look at videos on LinkedIn. I can just safely make weird content all day long, and no one will watch these things. So I started doing pop culture branding and marketing videos. So I would go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and I would talk about 15 facts about the branding, marketing, monetization metrics of Harry Potter, or trains in the US and Europe, very random subjects. And the crazy thing is, and not so crazy now that I think about it, is that started doing incredibly well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm hoping that everybody's following Goldie's channel now after the talk. But you recently did 365 days of video.
Yeah.
A lot of work, a lot of wonderful content.
Thank you.
Tell us, what did you learn from that experience? And what can others take from it?
Sure. So so if you actually watch my 365th video, which you can find, it's a couple videos back, but I recently posted it, it is all about perseverance. So I did 365 videos completely uninterrupted. I never skipped a day. I was in the desert, in a literal desert with my friends. We were driving out to Joshua Tree, and I realized I had not done my video. I think it was video 175. I had not done my video for that day, and I made them backtrack 35 miles to a Starbucks so I could shoot and upload a video. Because that is, I think, how focused you have to be as a content creator who is doing daily content. You have to be obsessed.
Absolutely. Would we consider you obsessed?
I feel like yes.
Yeah. Quick question for the crowd. I'm just wondering, before today, was there anybody here who did not know that there was video on LinkedIn? Be honest.
Be honest.
Yeah? Okay. So we know now? That's fantastic. Okay. So 365 days of video, that's a lot of content. Is there one piece of content that you would maybe highlight that got the most engagement, that you're most proud of? What would that be?
You know what? So obviously all my videos, not shockingly, that I do at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter do quite well, and I started doing a B2B, I'm such a nerd. I started doing a B2B marketing series. It's about 100 videos. I've only gone through 50 that I shot at Disneyland. So I literally went to Disneyland and I shot 100 B2B and B2C marketing tips, and those have been doing pretty well. But my most popular video of all time was when I talked about trolls and bullying.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And was there one piece that you did that really didn't work? That you would actually talk about publicly here with the rest of us?
I think I had one video that did 31 views. That is a little low for my channel. I think that video also just like all great things in life, I had spent so much time planning it. I was like, this video is gonna get 10,000 views. It got 31 views. I kept refreshing it because this is what you do. If none of you are content creators, this is what you do when your content does badly. You kind of just sit there and you keep refreshing and you hope that that number magically goes up because you're watching it, so maybe that'll give a view to it.
Yep.
I think currently, a year later, it is at 35 views. So viral content.
Give her a little bump on that piece of content, please. Okay, cool. So great content is hard. We
Yes.
know that.
Yes.
So, everyone who's come here wants to learn a little bit of something today,
Yes.
especially in a B2B sense. So from a LinkedIn perspective, we're really all about trying to help you connect with professionals in a business context for the
Right.
most part. Is there a tip or a handful of tips that you would normally introduce as far as creating great content for a B2B type of audience?
Yes. So number one that I love to give is not necessarily a sexy tip, but is incredibly useful, and that is have a content calendar that's been approved across multiple layers. Right? Because that is what's so difficult about doing B2B content is that it needs to get approved by so many people.
Yep.
So you eliminate that issue by pre-creating content calendars that have subjects and have different pieces maybe already mapped out for each month at the beginning of the month. So that's one really not easy and not sexy, but one really important thing to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, let's play a little role playing here, real quick. I'm the CEO of a company. I'm a founder. I'm a business leader.
Yeah.
I'm really under-indexed in terms of how I'm engaging with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I engage somebody like you to help. How do we get started?
Okay, so first of all, and I know that some people I work with, they don't like this term, and it's completely understandable. So not everyone likes the term thought leader,
leadership,
right?
yep.
And thought leadership.
Yep.
However, I think that term is incredibly important because it does still mean something. I worked with one CEO at a large real estate firm, one of the top ones in the US. And when I worked with this particular CEO, we had to get him, NDA, to trend really highly on LinkedIn. And one of the things that we did was, first of all, we scrubbed. We completely scrubbed that LinkedIn profile. Because I don't know if you're aware, which
Okay.
I am positive that you're aware, some people
I might
have
be.
awkward, weird photos for their profile
Yeah.
photo, right? It's blurry, it's too close. I call this the serial killer photo. It's like here, right?
Or
This is
the I've been cut out of a wedding
right,
photo.
yeah, or you're like this, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like it's obvious that your face is pressed up against somebody else's and you cropped it in this incredibly awkward fashion.
Yep.
So, professional headshots.
Yes.
And let's be honest, phones these days are amazing, and you can take phone photos that
Yep.
look close enough to a professional headshot that aren't, this crop or this crop or this crop, or you're incredibly far away in a field for some reason.
Yep.
I always wonder about those field photos. There's quite a few of them, and I'm looking at you in the audience in case you have one. So that's always the way I start
Yep.
first is
Yep.
we just look at the photos, we look at that copy, and we optimize against that for both SEO and social media and also any links that they really want to drive traffic to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is really foundational stuff,
Yes.
right? Whether it's your personal profile as a leader, and that's going to have a reflection on your company, and
Yes.
making sure that your company page is up. Like a lot of it is just building block stuff, right?
Yes, so there's so many little pieces that we forget, and one of them, for example, is the header image. So both the header image on a company page and then also the header image on a personal profile.
Yep.
And I have once again seen some awkward, odd header images that
Yeah,
are not
yeah.
appropriate for LinkedIn. Please keep it on Facebook, guys.
Sure.
You don't need that picture of you and 12 children.
Yep.
That may or may not be yours. I don't understand.
Yeah.
So it's important to have proper imagery and proper words, and remember that this is still LinkedIn, and some of my peers who are LinkedIn, influencers, they have words like unicorn, ninja, I don't
Guru.
even know, guru, all of those words that I personally find not not indexable, that's not really a word, not indexed well by Google.
Yep.
And if it's not indexed well by Google, why would I include that term on LinkedIn? Then it's just a vanity term.
Yep.
I mean, we all want to be leprechaun, unicorn, butterflies, but I'm not going to put that as my title on LinkedIn.
Cool. Okay, so, we've got the base set. We've got, a great profile.
Yeah.
Everybody in the room's proud of their LinkedIn profile picture today. We're going to do something about that if we're not, I hope.
No
Okay.
serial killers. Okay, who here today is going to commit to not posting a serial killer picture forever? Just one person, great. Okay, all
That's
the rest
great.
of you are serial killers.
That's great. So the base is set, and we're going to start thinking about content, and that's
Yes.
how we're going to engage the community. How do you start thinking about that?
Vertical specific. So if you are trying to sell automobiles, please, for the love of everything beautiful and good, write about automobiles. And this is the number one thing that I see a lot of C-level executives be nervous about, is they're like, I don't want to write about my industry. And I think, if you don't write about your industry, how will you ever trend in your industry?
Absolutely. So I think I might know the answer to this one. So we're thinking about content. We want to be helpful. We want to be useful.
Yes.
That's the key. Just like any other content marketing, we need to provide value to the audience. Is that the idea?
Yes, please provide value. So there are quite a few now LinkedIn video creators on platform, and one of the rookie mistakes I see is that there's a 10-minute video limit on LinkedIn. You just never need to hit that 10-minute limit.
Yep.
So I will see people, and I call LinkedIn video the early YouTube days, because now I'm seeing these shaky vlogs that are 8+ minutes long, and they're talking about feelings. There's nothing wrong with talking about feelings. Feelings are awesome. But they're talking about feelings, and they're like, today at work, and then it gets progressively, for some odd reason, shakier and shakier as they're going. That's what you want to avoid. So it should be as high quality as you can make it. You can buy an inexpensive tripod, and it should also always add value for your specific audience. So whoever your demographic that you're wanting to target, whether that's a client base or whether that's just your industry vertical, make sure that you are adding value to that client base or that demographic, please, because value-adding content is really just the best.
Yeah. Got to be good quality. I mean, iPhones are okay, right?
Yes.
Let's make sure that we use a tripod or some way to, even if you need to buy an inexpensive mic, something like that.
Right.
Make sure audio is up to snuff.
Right. So
Absolutely.
always think about your audio, think about tripod, think about lighting. There's a million little, because of Instagram, there's a million mini little lights that you can now buy for your iPhone that will help so you will be well lit. So even if you're, say, making videos in-house for a company that you're working for, you can easily set up you can create a mini setup that will cost you under 50 USD.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about creating content for a client, maybe it's video.
Right.
I mean, what formats have you seen had the most success, the most engagement? Probably is video. What are some of the other things that have maybe you've seen work well?
I mean, I am the top LinkedIn video influencer, and now I have to throw video under the bus and say that still written content is king. So written content is so useful. Why? Because it can be easily searched by, once again, our dear friends at Google. And so it's important to do a combination. So when I work with clients, I will suggest, especially, let's start with written, and then let's fold in video as appropriate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then we talk a little bit about engagement. There's wonderful engagement. I like to think people bring their best selves to LinkedIn more often than not. Certainly, I think more than other platforms.
Yes.
Is there a way maybe you deal with engagement or negativity? That's a big worry for a lot of clients that we talk to, is there's the fear of engagement because of potential negativity.
Right. So there will be negativity on any platform. Actually, because I'm so extra, as the kids say, when I got my first hate comment, my friend printed it out and my response onto a T-shirt
Oh,
for me.
really?
So the way I responded to my very, very first yay hate comment was I said, that is a wonderful thing to say. That's all. I just left it at that. There's no need to engage trolls in a negative way, but engagement is so important. So when you're dealing with negative responses or negative comments, sometimes I think it's important to acknowledge that they made a comment and then just try to diffuse the situation. I get a lot of personal, upset comments by people who are literally like, why is the shade of your jacket pink? It should be orange. I hate you. I hate everything about you. You're clearly not a professional because your jacket is not orange. Things that are maybe not logical. And to be fair, what I'll sometimes do is I'll even reach out privately and say, hey, what's going on? Are you having a bad day? Let's understand, what is going on with you, and let's maybe cool it on some of this verbiage that comes across as negative. And I will say this also publicly in comments sometimes, is just, hey, I understand that you're passionate about subtitles. I recently got into a almost flame war about somebody who said that I didn't subtitle one video, so therefore I'm a terrible person. And so I said, hey, I so appreciate how passionate you are about subtitles, but maybe let's talk about this in a non-abrasive way.
Yep, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I thought during the talk you did a wonderful job of talking about some of the other influencers in the space. It seems like there's a wonderful community that's kind of built, around the LinkedIn influencer side of things. Is there one connection that you have on the platform, or one, follow that you would say, this is my very favorite?
Oh my gosh, that's such a...
If you were going to pick one, and you're not going to be flaming the others here by...
Right. It is so hard to pick one favorite connection because they call me the mama bear too. So they're all my children, all of the creators on the platform. And one of the things, this is so tough. Now you're putting me on the spot, and I should have had an answer for this.
Yep.
I should have prepared an answer, so I'm just talking now to give myself time to give an answer. I would say, you know what? I would actually pick John Yoshihai because I just saw his cartoons.
Yeah.
I loved his cartoons. I didn't know he was this influential on YouTube at the time. I wrote him this note, and I was like, I love your cartoons. You were the coolest human alive. And I wrote him this kind of awkward fan note, and he added me back, and he was like, this is great, Goldie. Do you want to have lunch at YouTube? And I was like, what? But that's probably one of my favorite connections because it is a good example of a lot of my connections, which is we support each other in the creative community. We're there, and we try to self-moderate sometimes too, because there are trolls.
Yep.
And so if there ever is somebody who jumps on and is really, very legitimately offensive, a lot of the other LinkedIn community members will also jump on and just say, hey, why don't we just take a break and chill?
Yep. And so one last question. I mean, you mentioned, that was a neat connection that you made.
Yeah.
A lot of us who are trying to maybe build up our connections and build up the community around us on LinkedIn, is there any advice that you'd give for folks as far as making a connection with somebody, whether, it's adding a note to your LinkedIn connection request? What's the best way to make connections on the platform? Is there any advice you'd give to those of us in the crowd?
Well, you just took my best advice. So
Did I? Sorry.
I'll go with my second best advice. So number one, of course, is what you just said. So please add a note when you send a connection request.
Yeah.
Add a specific note too, because I get form letter. My inbox is crazy. So I get requests all the time, and a lot of times there's no note or there's a form letter. Dear blank. I saw that we had several shared connections. Well, I know that's a form letter. Please, I work in marketing. Yeah. So please do an actual note to that person you're trying to connect with. That's number one. But number two is engage. So I am a huge fan of engagement. So if you see somebody interesting on the platform, try to engage with them. Either send them a private message and say, hey, I saw this really wonderful article you just wrote, or do comments on the platform content itself. So on the article itself, be like, hey, this is a wonderful piece of content on the aviation industry.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. I think we'll both be around in the break. Goldie's going to hang around in the lobby in the break if we want to have take the conversation a little bit further. But
Yeah.
thank you for your talk, and thank you for coming to Toronto.
Thank you for having me.